And just like that, it's time for our weekly roundup of all the things lady just ain't gonna do this week. Number 1, Dave Chappelle's transphobia. I mean, I'm not even sure why we are still talking about this. And by this, I mean why it's acceptable to make trans people the butt of your stupid jokes. I gotta be honest, I stopped fucking with Dave Chappelle off this shit a long time ago, never to return. This week, Dave Chappelle released a new comedy special on Netflix called The Closer. In it, Chappelle doubles down on his tasteless jokes about trans people, anti-trans legislation, and cancel culture, which really, as you fucking know, isn't a fucking thing. Chappelle employs the age-old, you're being too sensitive and can't take a joke, but let me just say this. I think Dave Chappelle is living in a world he hasn't learned to comprehend. And so instead of admitting that he's being left behind by juvenile and archaic versions of the world we once were, he calls for the other dinosaurs to join him for a front row seat to extinction. Sometimes people just don't have the range, honey. And I'm sorry to say this, folks, but Dave Chappelle does not have the range. The best comedians aren't shock jocks. They're the ones who get you to see how absurd we've become as humans that exclude others for no fucking reason besides our own securities. And as you can tell, Dave Chappelle is insecure. He doubles down on his juvenile bullshit because he's immature. Lady wishes Dave well, but won't be a consumer anytime soon. It's like watching a 15-year-old boy make fart jokes and laugh at you because you have boobs. Okay, sir, grow the fuck up and give us something better than just being one half of the Black Beavis and Butthead. Other things Lady ain't gonna do this week is accept apologies and not change behavior. So, I don't know. I feel like there's something in the air these days. Maybe it's Mercury in retrograde. Maybe it's just pandemic realness where when faced with your own mortality, you just give less fucks. But whatever it is, what we ain't gonna do this week is accept apologies and not change behavior. This can apply to relationships of any type. Now look, I don't believe in throwing people away, but listen, if you engage in some weird shit with your chest, engage that apology with your chest too. Your best apology is always change behavior. And if you're the one who needs to apologize and change your behavior, please don't gaslight people into thinking they did something to cause your bullshit. Own your shit. It's a part of the changed behavior thing. Let's move on to things that Lady does like this week. This week, the illustrious and fucking hilarious Michael Harriot was born, and we are so glad that he was. Now, Michael was a guest on this podcast and is one of the best to ever do it. He gives us hilarious stories on Twitter about the mundane and eloquent articles on theroot.com where he helps us understand politics through a lens of what's in it for Black people. And he makes us laugh incessantly because, hey, this thing called life is hard work, and sometimes you need a good belly laugh to get through it all. I highly recommend 2 articles from Michael this week, Fuck Kirsten Cinema and The Aussie Finesse Explained. Trust me, you will thank me for this one. We are glad you were born, Michael Harriot. Other things Lady loves this week is progressive Democrats holding the line to get real things done for real people. I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised that progressive Democrats are holding the line when it comes to the infrastructure bill and what it takes to win real things for real people and not drive this entire country off a cliff. But if Lady's being honest, my sense is that we're suspended in midair. We're off the cliff. But in any case, we're seeing some possible movement here in the area of infrastructure, with Congress raising the debt ceiling so that A, we can keep the government running, and B, consider new legislation that requires spending. Progressive Democrats, especially the Congressional Progressive Caucus, have been doing a solid job keeping at the forefront what is at stake for our communities if we don't make some bold investments now to secure our present and give a path for the future. In case you forgot what's on the line with the infrastructure bill and that future I'm talking about, here's what's being talked about. It's this, okay? $3.5 trillion over the next decade for childcare, paid family and medical leave, universal pre-K, child tax credits, school nutrition programs, guaranteed 2 years of community college, workforce training programs, especially for home health aides and elder care workers, care tax credits to offset the cost of care, Medicare expansion, and much more. This would be paid for by making corporations pay their fair share. So remember, whenever you start to go off the cliff of procedure, keep your eye on the ball of what we're fighting for and why it matters that we keep the pressure on. Other things that Lady loves this week is courageous conversations. So listen. Mercury is in retrograde until October 18th, and so we got about another week and some change of this shit. The retrograde is happening in Libra, which is your house of relationships. And you might be noticing that you're having a lot of courageous conversations lately. I know I am. Or maybe you're noticing that there are some courageous conversations that you need to have. Now, Lady wants to encourage you to get it done. Handle business. So look, I've gotten really good at this, not just in relationships, but in life, because it really is too short to not say what needs to be said and keep seeking connection. But the thing is, folks, lots of us don't like to do this because we're taught to avoid conflict. But my loves, conflict can be generative if done right. I promise you. So here's a few tips from Lady on how to have a courageous conversation. Number 1, be clear about why you need to have this conversation. What's at stake if you do have the discussion? What's possible? And what's at stake if you don't have the conversation? Yeah. Number 2, focus on being honest, not being right. So this one is big. Connection comes from vulnerability. It comes from being honest. If you're focused on making your point or being right, you've lost your way. Your truth is yours, their truth is theirs. What you're looking for here is, can we connect and can we hear each other? Now, shout out to my sister, Esperanza Turvalon-Daumont, who runs Dancing Hearts Consulting. And she has told me something that I will never forget. What happens between us is half yours and half mine. So how would your conversation change if you came into it from that perspective? Number 3, set the tone and be prepared to listen. Tone is everything, especially when emotions are raw. Tone can often determine outcomes. And if your tone is combative, chances are the conversation going to be feisty. If the tone is timid, chances are the conversation's going to miss a lot of things that need to be said. So take a deep breath and speak what's really on your heart and use your I statements. Remember to take responsibility for your feelings and reactions. I feel versus you made me feel. And don't forget to say up front what you want to see happen as a result of the conversation. If you need more space, say that. If you want to reconnect, say that. It doesn't mean it's all going to happen in this conversation, but at least it sets the goalpost. And listen, really listen. Listen for what's being said and what's not being said. Ask questions and seek understanding. Now, this is a lovely time to get clearer in your relationships and get what you want. Take advantage of it while the stars are in your favor.